Hey, do you like the way this microphone sounds? Deep, rich, robust? Well, that's the last you're going to hear of it in this video. I kind of screwed up and I had the wrong microphone selected. I had my laptop microphone selected. So throughout this video, when you hear me talk, it's going to be really echoey and a little bit annoying. But luckily, I don't talk too much in this because Jason does all the talking and his microphone sounds great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Woodworking Talk Show. Jason, what do you think about the name of this? There was a lot of conversation in my last video that it was like, you know, it needs some work. It needs a catchier title.
Needs some pizzazz. Let's see, the Woodworking Talk Show. I mean, that's very straightforward. People definitely know what they're getting into with that title.
Yeah, I think it pretty much explains it. Before I get started, I wanted to remind you of, hey, my award-winning monthly newsletter, Notes from the Shop. Now, how's that for a clever name? It's free.
That's good.
It's totally free. And I mail it out the first Friday of every month. And in it, you'll get a long, sometimes rambling note from me talking about woodworking and life and other stuff. You'll get project ideas, tips, awesome projects from members of my weekend woodworker courses. That's actually my favorite part of the whole newsletter. It's also the most difficult part for me to choose, you know, just a few projects to highlight from like the hundreds that we get every month. And there's tons more in that newsletter. It's just jam-packed with great stuff sent out to over 250,000 of my closest friends. So if you want to sign up, head over to notesfromsteve.com and sign up. On July 24, 2018, Jason Hibbs posted his first video on YouTube, and like so many channels, Bourbon Moth Woodworking exploded in March of 2020. Wonder what was going on in March of 2020. And they're reaching its peak in November with, okay, hold on to your jigsaws, 71,000 new subscribers in 1 month back in November. Today, the channel has almost 600,000 subscribers and 27 million views with just 74 videos. I mean, that is amazing growth in 1 year. His channel features beautiful furniture projects, cabinets, woodworking tips. There's a fair amount of weird stuff on this channel. We'll get into that. DIY projects and drinking. But most of all, they're all super entertaining. Hey, Jason, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here.
What inspired you to start this channel? I was looking through your videos. Your very first video is the mid-century walnut hutch / how-to. I like the titling of that. And because you posted this video, this is a couple years after you joined YouTube.
Yeah, so there was two videos. There was the mid-century walnut hutch, and then I think there was an oak trestle table that I posted back in 2018. And I was doing custom furniture full-time at that point, and I was on Instagram. I started kind of doing more content creation stuff on Instagram, working with sponsors and brands and that sort of thing. And I thought maybe I'll try the whole YouTube thing out. But because I was a full-time custom furniture maker, I just didn't realize the time commitment that YouTube took. So I posted those first two videos, and then I didn't post again for 2 years. So, I mean, my goal there was just to kind of show people the process, and maybe, you know, people could follow along and build stuff if they wanted to. But yeah, I posted those two videos, and then I just gave up on it and said, this isn't for me. I'm not going to have time to do this. I can't do this and custom furniture. It's just too much. So I just walked away from it at that point and didn't come back to it until last year.
So was it the lockdown that kind of brought you back into producing content?
Yeah, definitely, because I had my build list scheduled out, I don't know, 6 months, I think, of people that wanted stuff. And then when COVID hit, everybody was just kind of freaking out a little bit about money. So pretty much every client I had that was waiting on a piece contacted me and said, hey, you know that piece I want you to build, why don't you just hold off for now? We're not sure if we're going to have the money or, you know, if we can afford. I always charge deposits, so they'd paid a deposit, but they were basically like, we don't know if we can pay the other half of the piece, so let's hold off. So I found myself all of a sudden with just a bunch of free time, which I'm not used to, and I don't do free time well. I'm not good at just sitting around. It drives my wife crazy because I just can't sit still. I need to be doing something. So when I had all that free time, I thought, hey, maybe I'll give this YouTube thing another go while I wait for things to pick back up. And YouTube just kind of went crazy, and I never really went back to the custom furniture after that. So,
well, you certainly came in at the right time for YouTube. How long had you been making custom projects? How long has that been your career?
oh man, I think I'm going on 7 years now. So not super long, 6-7 years, somewhere in there. Yeah. I'm still a noob, man. I still am figuring things out as far as woodworking goes, so.
What got you started 7 years ago?
Oh, I mean, it's the classic story that I think everybody gets started in woodworking with. I wanted furniture that I couldn't afford, so I thought, oh yeah, I can build that myself, it can't be that hard. So I got some tools and started trying to build a few things for our house, and just fell in love with it, and it snowballed from there.
And then you find out at some point it's actually cheaper to just buy furniture.
Oh, for sure.
But you can't get the quality.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fun. It's kind of the challenge of doing it, but it's definitely not cheaper. Anyone who thinks I'm gonna save money and build myself furniture,
Right.
no, you're gonna spend double or triple what you probably would by the time you're done.
Materials cost alone are a lot for any project, even back when lumber was cheaper than it is. Although the prices of lumber are starting to come back down. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, they dropped quite a bit this last month, which is nice to see.
Yeah. I had a feeling they were going to start to creep down. I don't know if they'll still get back to where they were a year or so ago, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt they'll go all the way back down, but hopefully they'll drop a little bit.
Right.
But it's not just lumber. I mean, when you're building your own pieces, especially starting out, you got lumber and then all the tools you didn't realize you needed to complete a project. So you start buying stuff. And then once you buy some tools, you realize, oh, I need different tools, and you're upgrading, and it's a snowball.
I should point out that in case anybody watching this is wondering, Jason lives in a closet. Well, we were in his shop before, but he wanted to. We thought, well, we'd get a better sound quality, so he records. You have your own podcast, don't you?
Yeah, Shop Sounds podcast. It's with Keith Johnson, KJ Sawdust, and Nick Key over at Key Woodworks. So this is my fancy recording studio. This is also where I do all my voiceovers for my videos. Because as me and Steve were mentioning before we started recording, closets are natural sound booths. They're just good audio quality.
Right, that and cars. Yeah, we talked about there's a whole genre of YouTube video of the car rant video, and you see this everywhere where a guy will just be in his car just ranting about some topic. And there was actually a great parody video of it on, I think Ryan George had a parody video of the car ranters. But yeah, good sound quality. Are you still doing commissioned projects at all?
So, like I said, I mean, I've only been doing YouTube for barely over a year now, and I was booked out quite a ways with custom projects when I decided to make that switch. And of course, I wasn't going to contact clients and be like, never mind, I'm switching gears. I'm not going to build your pieces anymore. I've pretty much worked through all my custom pieces. I haven't been taking any more. I'm actually this week trying to finish up my last custom client build, which is a few pieces for, it's for a band down in Tennessee that I forget. I don't even remember how I got hooked up with them, but they've literally been on my list for 2 years. And these are for a house that they're building, a new house. But when COVID hit, same thing happened with them. I mean, everything slowed down, so construction got halted. So things have just been taking longer than they normally would. So they're finally ready for them. So I'm trying to get those done, and then I'm done. I'm not taking on custom stuff anymore.
Right. Are you getting some video out of these projects you're making for the band?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at this
Yeah.
point, everything is a video, regardless of what it is. It becomes a video in some form.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you start making YouTube videos, it's like you can't just build a project without shooting video. Even if you start to, you're going to regret it. You'll think, oh, I should have. You might as well shoot some video of it and get some content out there now.
Well, I've done it. I've done that a few times since I switched to doing YouTube, thinking nobody is going to want to see how to do this, or it's boring, or it's not interesting enough. And then I'll post pictures on Instagram, and the flood of DMs and comments of "When's the video on this coming out?" just kind of made me realize, all right, regardless of whether or not I think it's going to be an interesting video, I'm just going to document everything I do, and come what may.
Did the growth of your channel surprise you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a lot of friends for years now in the YouTube maker community, a lot of great supporters, and all of them were really encouraging to me and telling me, man, you got to get on YouTube, because I'd been on Instagram and I was basically doing YouTube on Instagram just in a smaller scale, because you got a smaller window to work with. You got 1 minute of time to work with. And so all these friends that are really successful on YouTube were like, man, you got to get on YouTube. But as I was talking to them in that same breath, they were like, but just be prepared. It's going to take a long time to grow your channel. You just got to stick with it, grind it out. You'll feel discouraged for a long time. So I fully expected that when I really started posting videos. And for whatever reason, it had the complete opposite experience for me. It just went crazy, and I mean, I'm very humbled by it, and I feel very blessed by it.
Well, I think you have a good combination of interesting projects and entertainment. I think that you have a way of presenting your videos that is just funny at times, and I think you'll get a lot of people. You probably have a lot of people watch your videos who don't do woodworking and aren't really even interested in woodworking.
Yeah, I do think I have a lot of that, and that's kind of been my goal, is that even if you don't care at all what I'm building, just trying to make it entertaining for anybody. So if you happen to land on my video because the YouTube algorithm serves it up to you for some reason and you start watching it, even if you don't care about woodworking, hopefully it'll be entertaining enough that you can just keep watching it. And it's funny to the funny thing about YouTube is the comments. I mean, they're good, they're bad. You get all this different feedback from people all over the world, and it's just hilarious what different people think of the content you put out there.
What are some of the most unexpected comments you've received?
I mean, it just ranges so much from, like, some people are really just mean, you get a lot of a lot of those that it's like, why even take the time to comment when you're just gonna, try and belittle somebody. Thankfully, I have a pretty thick skin and I just laugh those ones off. But then you get people that kind of start comparing you to other people. I get surprisingly, a lot of people have compared me to Bob Ross. They say my videos are very Bob Ross-ish, which was funny. Yeah.
Do you ever have anybody, David Picciuto?
No.
It's called Make Something is his channel.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I've heard of the channel.
you guys look have a very similar look to you. I was just wondering if anybody glances and thinks, "Oh, is that the same guy?" No, different guy.
Well, I'm horrible when it comes to, like, I just don't watch YouTube a ton. So I don't know a lot of, the people I probably should know. And definitely, like, pop culture and famous people, I know nobody. So sometimes people will say, like, oh, you look exactly like this person. And I literally have to go Google the person because I have no clue. And then I'm either, complimented or offended depending on who they're saying I look like.
Yeah, right. I know. I get that sometimes too. Now you're up in Oregon. Are you near Portland?
Yeah, yeah. I'm about an hour south of Portland. So I'm in the Willamette Valley. If you're not from Oregon, you call it the Willamette, but it's Willamette. So yeah, right, basically dead smack in the middle between Portland and Eugene, right along the I-5 corridor there. We're out of town a little ways, kind of in the country, I guess, on a few acres. So it's nice. We really like it here.
Your videos have kind of a Portlandia vibe. Have you ever seen that show, Portlandia?
I watched that show for a while, but it is painfully accurate.
I had a
Like
feeling it was.
you would think that it's really played up and they're just trying to make it like over the top, but it's painfully accurate to exactly how Portland is. That
Yeah.
as a local watching it, you're like, I spend enough time in Portland. I don't need to watch this.
I have a feeling Portland is a lot like San Francisco because I
Yeah.
recognize a lot of the same characters. Yeah.
Yep. I would imagine it's a lot like a lot of major cities like that.
Right. Have you always been kind of the entertainer, or is this? I mean, were you ever like the class clown or anything like that? Did you bring
Definitely. I mean, I'm the stereotypical the student that teachers probably dreaded, or
anything? Sit down.
the student that teachers always heard of me before I ever got into their class. You know, they'd come talk to me
Oh
on the
no.
first day of class, and we're like, just so you know, I've heard about you, and it's not going to fly in my class. You know, the classic. I wasn't a great student, but that's why YouTube's so fun because I just feel like I get to do everything that I was always told I'm not allowed to do, you know? Be be crazy, explore strange ideas that probably aren't a good idea, but I mean people enjoy watching it. Like the lawnmower tank's a great example of that. I mean that was basically the first big project that I did when I had free time because of COVID. Is I just had all this free time. I didn't really know what to do. I'd been building custom furniture for such a long time. I wanted to do something different, and I had this 0 degree turn riding lawnmower. And me and my son, he's been riding with me on that lawnmower every time I mow the lawn since he was about 1 years old. He just loves riding on it with me. And I think he was 5 at the time, and we were riding on it. And he said, "Dad, this thing turns just like a tank." And it just sparked this idea of what if I could turn this into an actual tank. And it was going to be a quick like 2 day project, just build a a fake plywood cover to go over the top, but I got into it and it just snowballed out of control and got more and more crazy, and we added real working moving tank tracks to it and a real potato cannon that shot potatoes out the front. And
It's amazing. It's an amazing thing to see. And do you still have it?
no, so it was a lot of fun and it was really fun to drive around. It was horrible at mowing the lawn
Yeah.
because the tank tracks, they stuck out about a foot and a half on either side of the mower deck, so you couldn't edge anything, you couldn't get up close to stuff. So after letting my lawn get out of control for a month while I just played in it, my wife was finally like, "You got to take this thing off and actually mow the lawn." So it was either get rid of it or buy a new lawnmower. So I actually, the way it was built, it was only the entire structure of the tank was only attached to the lawnmower with 4 wood screws, believe it or not. So I undid those screws and then the entire cover just lifted off. And so it sat out in our pasture for a while. And finally, my wife got tired of looking at it. And I just posted on Instagram in a story, "Hey, if anybody wants this thing," thinking nobody was going to want this shell of a tank. I got so many DMs from people that are like, I'll come pick it up today." So a guy down in Eugene drove up with a flatbed trailer, and I guess they have a camping property that their family uses with a paintball course. So they dropped it in the middle of the paintball course. So I'm happy that it found a new home and it's getting some use out of it still.
Yeah, that's when you know you're a YouTuber, when you start making these projects that have no purpose whatsoever other
Yeah, yeah.
than make a great video.
Well, that's a
That was a
question
fun.
I have for you because you've been on YouTube about as long as you can be on YouTube, it seems.
Yeah,
I mean, you were
13
one of
years.
the OG originals, and so you've been doing this a long time. Have you gotten to a point where you feel like you're in some context running out of content?
It's not so much of running out. I don't think I'll ever like. Sometimes people think, well, are you afraid of ever running out of ideas? And that's not the way ideas work. It's not like at the beginning of your life you're allotted with a certain amount of ideas, and then once you've used them up, that's it. There's no more. You know, it's a creative process. It's ongoing, and there's always a million things that I would like to make. But what I've noticed is that building projects isn't as interesting for me to document anymore as doing things like what I'm doing right here, talking to other woodworkers and doing tip and technique videos, these kind of things. And it's just a matter of like, I don't know, constantly changing. I think my channel has always just been evolving over the years, and it's just, you know, I think that's what keeps me going for so long, because, you know, over time it just gets to be like, wow, just another project. I'm just making another project. And I think the audience kind of senses that too. They're like, oh, okay, well, it's just the same, more of the same, you know?
Yeah.
I think and I notice you do a lot of different things on your channel. In fact, you've got like drinking videos, like how, you know, rating scotches and mixing drinks. And is that something that you think you're going to just keep on that? Have you thought about starting a second channel for that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of seeing how it goes. I I really like doing the drink videos. They definitely haven't been wildly popular as far as my other videos go. They're on the lower end of viewership. I've gotten really good responses from the people that are watching them, and you know, people commenting that they want more of them. I kind of started doing those because I set a goal for myself at the beginning of this year that I wanted to try and put out a video every week, which was probably a horrible, stupid thing for me to tell myself I wanted to do. Because another thing is when I tell myself I'm going to do something, it's almost impossible for me to like break that. I can't. I have to do it. But it's really hard in woodworking and building and doing project videos to build a project, film it, edit it, and get a whole video out within the span of a week. I mean, it's nearly impossible for a piece of furniture. So I found myself needing to come up with other videos that I could get out faster while I was working on projects in the background. And I mean, I love alcohol, not in a bad, you know, you're going to find me on a park bench kind of way. I just have always loved like alcohol culture and the history of distilling, and especially like bourbons and whiskeys. There's just really interesting history there. So I thought maybe I'd try and do some of these drink videos, and I mean, each one has done a little bit better than the last, so that's encouraging a little bit. So I'll probably keep plugging away at least through this year and see how they do, and then if they're doing well enough, maybe I'd start just a drink channel or leave them on there. I do definitely get a few people that are like, I'm here for the woodworking, don't cloud up the page with the drink videos.
Yeah.
Which is always funny to me, because all you don't have to watch the video.
Right. Exactly. It's a very simple thing. Just don't watch the ones that aren't interesting to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be like, you're clouding up your page. Well, it's my page, first of all. It's not your page.
Yeah, and I think that you might find your channel developing into is just more of a lifestyle channel rather than a woodworking channel, unless you separate that and have, you know, the drinking channel. Because what you'll find is people will subscribe because they love those. They find you through the algorithm. They find, oh, this guy is showing me different types of scotches or how to mix a drink. I love that content. And then they're like, oh, wait, what's this woodworking stuff? I'm not interested. So you'll have like two separate audiences kind of emerge. But if there are plenty of channels that do that, like lifestyle vlogging, where they just kind of show their daily, what they're doing. And a lot of people are real successful at that, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still very much trying to figure this whole thing out. I don't even really know how YouTube works completely.
Nobody does.
I just discovered a month ago that you can get the YouTube Studio app on your phone and like look at analytics. I didn't even know that was a thing. Now I'm looking at analytics. I didn't even think about analytics before like 2 months ago.
Does it just drive you crazy looking at analytics, or are you the type of person who just loves those numbers and loves those?
No, I mean it drives me crazy. I don't care, because in some sense I feel like it's out of my control. I mean, there are definitely things that I think you can look at the analytics and maybe see like, oh, this is more popular. Maybe I need to go more in this direction. But a lot of it's just numbers that I feel are out of my control. So what's the point in, you know, driving myself crazy studying those and looking at those too much? When it comes to the end of the day, ultimately, the reason I love YouTube is because I get to kind of do what I want, and I don't want to change that just to try and please the algorithm.
Right. I think that if you just try chasing the algorithm, you're just going to have a you're gonna have a miserable time. And I think over time, and I'm sure you already are at this point where you have a sense for what's going to perform well, and the algorithm can kind of help support that in a way. You're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. I understand why this video didn't perform well or this one did perform well. And your videos, you've got such a unique vision to those, which is why I'm sure the channel has taken off. Out of all of woodworking channels that come up, there's, a few that really have a different voice. And, just little things like your thumbnails, really creative. And you have like a lot of, I don't know if you're still doing like a little picture of you, little version of you.
Yeah, I try and put that in as much as I can. It's funny when I don't put myself in a thumbnail. Maybe you've seen this. Like the thumbnails with an actual person in them seem to do a lot better than just a picture. So that's when I started doing the little me, is because I'd get my really good detailed shot and then I'd just throw me in there somewhere, usually in like a funny way, and it seems to work. It's kind of my signature thing, I guess, now.
Yeah, I do A/B testing on my thumbnails I use this thing called TubeBuddy. And so you can and it just switches them back and forth to different viewers, so that some get one thumbnail and then the others get the other. And then over a few days, it'll tell you which one performed better. And it's really surprising sometimes how sometimes one thumbnail is just drastically better. And it would be like my B thumbnail. The one I wasn't expecting is the one that people want to click on. Yeah, it's interesting. I noticed that if there's a little bit of drama in it, if like something's a little blurry, like movement, or if you can't really quite see what's going on, those seem to do really well because there's like some interest or intrigue to them, I guess. But you're right about having your face on there. Yeah, it definitely helps. So.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you hate trying to be like clickbaity, but I definitely feel like if you can put something in your thumbnail that people are like, what is that? Or, how is that possible? Or something along those lines, it definitely helps as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with clickbait per se, depending on how exactly you define it. If clickbait originally was meant to imply that as soon as somebody clicked on your video, they found out it wasn't what your title or thumbnail described, and then they left. And to me, that's still what clickbait is. But if you just have an intriguing thumbnail that is a little provocative, but then you pay off in the video, to me, that's not really clickbait. The other thing you seem to do is you have an entrance to your videos. You come racing in from one side of the video or another. How did that ever get started? Was that just
I don't know how that got started. It just sort of happened. I think, to be completely honest, when I was a kid, I grew up watching the show Home Improvement, with Tim Allen and Al Borland. And they would do this thing on Tool Time where they would like do a commercial, like a product read, and then drop it and sprint over behind their workbench and then start the show. And I always thought that was so funny. And so for some reason that must have been in my brain in the first video I did, and I did this like running thing from scene to scene, and now it's just kind of become my entrance thing. Some people are getting really tired of it in the comment section, though. They're like, enough with the running around already. So I don't know if I'll ever stop. I like running. It's the only exercise I get throughout the day. So
it's part of your branding at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, let's talk about that shop of yours. Wow, that is an impressive shop. I took your shop tour video, which is really interesting because you kind of go through everything. It's a very entertaining video, like all of your videos. A lot of shop tours can be very dry and boring, but yours was very entertaining. So you've got like a luxury workshop there. It's a 1,500 square foot shop. It's bigger than my house, and you've got a bathroom in it. Who doesn't want a bathroom in their shop?
Yeah, the building is actually, I don't show this in the shop tour, maybe I mention it, but the building's actually 2,500 square feet, I think. So
Oh,
the original
man.
building was 1,500, and then my wife and I. So before I was doing woodworking, my wife and I started a textile printing company together, where we'd hand draw illustrations and then turn them into screens, and we'd screen print them onto various textile items like towels and T-shirts and napkins. And so when I started kind of moving more towards woodworking, she continued on with that business. But my wood shop used to have a wall down the middle, and half was her printing studio, and then half was basically a one-car garage that I turned into my wood shop. So as my woodworking business grew and I needed more space, I took over the entire shop, and then we added an addition onto the back of the shop that's now her studio. So the only way to get to her studio is actually through the bathroom, and then it goes into the back, and that opens up into her studio. But yeah, it's nice. I mean, we both work from home right there on our property, and yeah, I like my shop. I've actually been working on the one real upgrade I need to do in my shop is my dust collection system. So I've been working on figuring that out over the last week or so, and man, ducting is insanely expensive.
It
I
is,
had
isn't it? It's
I
crazy.
had
It's crazy.
no idea. So that'll be fun.
You're gonna get some videos out of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a video. Like I said, a video for everything. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
a video on switching out my whole dust collection system, and I've done a lot of research trying to figure out because at this point, I mean, I know it probably sounds uppity or whatever, but if I'm gonna upgrade something, I want it to be the best performing upgrade I can do. So I've been doing a lot of research on kind of what's the best system for my size shop. So it'll be interesting to see if all the research pays off and I notice a huge difference or not. I have to notice a huge difference because my system right now is horrible.
Yeah. And it's a pretty traditional woodworking shop. You mentioned you have a CNC in there that you've used once. Have you used it since then?
The CNC's actually gone. I got rid of
Oh,
it.
it's gone now.
Yeah, so that sat in my shop. That was something a sponsor reached out to and said, "Hey, would you want this?" And I was like, "Oh, sure." I mean, I had the space for it. I thought maybe this could be something I get into. But I'm just more on the traditional side, and I would rather, especially now that I've started doing content, it's really hard when you're in the middle of a project and you say, and then I go over to my CNC and I cut out all these parts, because immediately you lose a huge portion of your audience, because how many people just have a CNC in their shop? So I'd rather figure out a way to do it with the basic, tools that I have, whether that's router jigs or templates or whatever. So I wasn't using it at all, and then Bits and Bits, the router bit company, they're just down the road from me in Silverton, about 45 minutes away, and they were watching one of my videos, and they sent me a message, and they said, "Man, we see this CNC in your shop, but you never seem to use it. Would you be at all interested in selling it?" Because they wanted a CNC for their showroom so they could put their bits in and take videos and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, sure. What do you think of for price?" And they said, "Well, actually, we just became a full Festool dealer. Would you be willing to just trade for Festool products across the board?"
Done deal.
Festool's crazy expensive, so I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I think I got like 4 or 5 brand new Festool tools and just traded them my CNC, and I haven't missed it one bit.
So everybody who uses Festool says that it's just night and day, the difference, the quality of that versus other tools. Is that true? Is that your experience with them?
Um, yes and no. I will say there are a few things that Festool does better than anybody else, on the market. And there's a few tools that they have that nobody else has. I mean, the domino joiner definitely changed modern woodworking in a big way, I feel. I mean, it really sped up a lot of joinery, and nobody else can really compete on that level with that kind of machine. And then I have their chop saw, their miter saw, and it's honestly one of the best saws I've ever used. And then there's some other things that work really, really well, like their track saw is amazing, but I've also heard that like the Makita track saw is amazing and, a third of the price. And I have their drill and driver because I got it in that trade, and they work great, but at the end of the day, they're just a drill and driver. So I mean, there if you're gonna invest in Festool, I love the company. I've worked with them, doing some sponsorship stuff, so I will say that I might be a little biased, but there are definitely places I would spend my money on Festool, and other places I'd probably not.
Do you find yourself using the track saw very often?
Yeah, I use the track saw all the time.
Is it a replacement for a table saw?
Um, I think if you had a really small space and man, no, I don't think so. You could get away with a track saw instead of a table saw in a lot of circumstances, but I don't think it's a replacement. You can just do pretty much everything you need to do on a table saw. I mean, you can use a miter sled and basically use it as a miter saw. You can rip down sheet goods. You can carve out dados. You can, cut angles. You can cut dovetails on there if you wanted to. There's so much you can do on a table saw that you wouldn't be able to do with a track saw. So it probably depends on kind of what you're building and wanting to do.
Right. Because I've heard people say that before, have the track saw. Like, well, now I can get rid of my table saw. I don't need it now, does it? So it just seems to me that that's just an added tool. It wouldn't necessarily replace that at all. Is there anything
Yeah,
that you
no, I
wouldn't?
don't agree.
Is there anything you wouldn't do on the table saw that you would just do exclusively on the track saw? I mean, just probably breaking down plywood is a lot easier on the track saw.
Yeah, breaking down plywood, especially if you're not set up to like cross cut a big sheet of plywood, if you don't have a big like cross cut, arm, sled, whatever they're called. The track saw is phenomenal for that. I usually use the track saw to, like, if I get rough lumber that's really long, that's kind of too long to run through my joiner, but it doesn't have a straight edge, so I can't immediately run it through my table saw. I'll usually pull out the track saw and put a somewhat straight edge on it before I take it over to the joiner. So it works really well for that. You can cut, if you're doing like a waterfall edge, it works pretty well for cutting those miters for a waterfall edge, which the table saw can be a little tricky if you got large pieces and you're trying to cut a big miter. So there's definitely a lot of times that I feel like the track saw comes in super handy for sure.
What are your thoughts on river tables? I already know the answer to that.
What are your thoughts on river tables?
It's a trend that I think is starting to die out, but I think it's like any trend in the whole maker community. Most of these trends seem to have popped up in the past 10 years because of YouTube, and you kind of mentioned both of those. And you had one of my favorite videos of yours is you made like this artisanal artisan palette, which you made a palette out of like really nice wood, and it has like a resin component to it, and I thought that was just hilarious. Like $6,000 palette.
Yeah, well, I got a river table that was made by Jeff Mack, who's one of the, I guess leaders in river tables, if that's a thing, up in Canada. So he made the river table and then sent it to me, and yeah, I cut it into pieces and then turned it into a pallet. I mean, I was just trying to be as ridiculous
It was
as
funny.
I could be. But I mean, I don't like river tables, and I'm not quiet about it either.
No, you even have bumper stickers. I think you sell that say like something like river tables. Just say no or something. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's right. I just don't get it. I don't. They go against everything that I know about style and design and what should look good or be popular. They just don't make sense to me. And I don't know, I don't think they've really been around long enough to know exactly how they're going to stand up for years and years with wood movement and then, epoxy and sunlight over the years and what that's going to do to the resin. So, like you said, I think it's a fad. I think anytime something really different that people haven't seen before comes out, people like to jump on that, especially on YouTube. But who knows? I'm hoping it goes away before too long. I'm getting kind of tired of
I
seeing it.
think I think it's expensive. It's just so expensive to pour that much epoxy for a project that, you know, has dubious quality or staying power. And I think that what will happen is in a few years we'll look. This will date this period of time. Are these epoxy tables? It's kind of like the orange shag carpeting of the of the 70s. You know, you'll look back on and think, oh, people really did those things back then.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, you get into the whole environmental issue too. It
Yeah,
can't be good. It can't be good for the environment to just be producing that much resin. Not to mention, you can't go throw that. You go throw a wood table in a landfill. Eventually, it's gonna, decompose and break down. But that resin's gonna be around for a few million years. So
right. Yeah, and wood is one of the most greenest, sustainable building materials there is, you know. And so to combine those is kind of a contradiction, I suppose. Another one of my favorite videos of yours is you made the Lego guy, little minifigure, except he's big Lego guy.
yeah, yeah. So that was another one that was sparked by my son, which are always super fun projects when your kid kind of has an idea and then you can kind of make it a reality for him. It's super fun.
I noticed your son's in a fair number of your videos. Is that something that you think you'll continue doing, or do you think there's going to be a point where you think I probably um, better back off on that?
It's completely up to him. He's really into it right now and he has a lot of fun, so I'm happy to include him because I just don't want to. I want him to be able to be a part of what I do, and when I'm out in the shop, I don't want to say no, you can't be out here, I'm recording. If he wanders out, he winds up in the video. It's never planned. It's always, I mean, if you look through my videos, I think with the Lego video was the one exception where I actually set up the camera and I had him come out because I wanted to get his reaction of it, because he wasn't there for me actually building it. He was at school. But other than that, when he's in the videos, it's because I'm filming and he wanders in there. And so as long as he's into it and interested, then he'll probably still show up. But if he ever gets to the point where he doesn't, want to be, then I mean, that's it. I'm not going to force him to be a part of it.
What is the name Bourbon Moth? Where does that come from? Why that?
The question everybody asks. I would love for it to have some wonderful, profound meaning, but it comes down to I needed a name for my business, and mainly because I was trying to get a website, and every web domain was just all the good ones were taken. I mean, anything woodworking, Jason's Woodworking, Jason's Woodshop, anything normal was already taken. So finally, out of frustration, I just decided I'm going to pick just something super random and see if that's available. And it happened to be Bourbon Moth, and it was available, so I just went with it.
I was wondering if that was like an actual type of insect, like an actual thing.
No, I don't think so. I've searched trying to find one after the fact so I could be like, oh no, this is a real thing, but I really don't. I don't think it is.
So it's like coming up with a band name. Just kind of pick a couple of different random things.
Yeah, and to be fair, when I started my woodworking business, it was before it was even really furniture. It was more going to be like an online boutique kind of thing, selling small handmade items. So the name I kind of was going for was more like something you'd see like on a storefront sign of like a little handmade boutique, which is usually a little more random. So that's kind of where my mind was at. I didn't know I was going to go into custom furniture and then eventually content and all that. So it might have been different had I known that, but hey, it works, and I'm going with it.
It's very Portlandia, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. See, it follows the Oregon theme, so that's good.
If somebody is listening to this who is interested in doing actual custom furniture, I know you're out of that business now, or at least getting out of it, would you advise them to do it? Do you think it's worth it? And do you have any tips?
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth it. I definitely think, especially now, you can really make a living at custom furniture if you have the drive and you have the willingness to do a decent job. Everyone always asks, like, what is the best way to get clients? And I think the best answer is to build really high quality stuff. Because if you build one high quality piece for one person, then that person is going to tell, who knows how many people about that piece, or other people are going to see that piece in their house. And so happy customers is your best bet as far as that goes. But I would definitely, if that's something that you want to do and you have the drive to do it, I would say absolutely go for it. I don't think the market's too saturated or you're never gonna, they talk about like starving artists. I don't think that's true. I think you can make a very decent living doing custom furniture.
You have to find people who are willing to pay what you are worth.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing is don't undervalue what you're worth. Don't let your clients dictate what the price is going to be. I mean, it's hard to say no when someone's saying, I want a piece and I'm willing to give you money. But if they're willing to pay you $400 for a 10-foot dining table, then no, you're not going to make it, because you're going to spend all your money on materials and you're not going to have any profit to show for it. But I also think that in some way happens over time. You have to start at a lower end, especially if you're brand new to building furniture. And as your quality increases, your price will just naturally increase as well.
Well, Jason, I want to thank you for joining me on my second episode of the Woodworking Talk Show. This has been, I'm gonna keep thinking about this. I'm gonna keep thinking about titles for it. Check out Jason's channel over at Bourbon Moth on YouTube. Of course, you have a huge Instagram following too. Is it just at Bourbon Moth?
Yeah, I think it's just Bourbon Moth. Might be Bourbon Moth Woodworking.
Yeah, and you've got a website where you sell all your stuff. I'm sure you can just Google that, you'll find it. That's
bourbonmoth.com. Yep, yeah. Just Google Bourbon Moth. I'm sure you'll find all the good things and probably some bad things. I don't know what's on there, so.
And drinking, and you'll learn how to make a cocktail.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining me, everybody.